Welcome to episode 2 of Living by Design, where real people bring real questions about how to live, create, and communicate in alignment with their human design. So most of the sessions, I'm going to have a guest where I'm doing laser coaching and helping them to see what's right about them and what's awesome about their design, and also help them to see where some challenges might be showing up and how to overcome those challenges through their design. My hope is that you, as the listener, will be able to follow along and look at your own human design and get at some insight into your own creative and energetic genius as well. I'm your host, Chris Prochaska. I help entrepreneurs, executives, and speakers who have a provocative message get crystal clear on what and how they are communicating so that their message lands. It's all about keeping it real and authentic and, above all, natural to their design. Today's episode is a little tutorial about human design and energy intelligence. You see, everything is energy, and we communicate energetically first and foremost. Your human design is a map of your energy. It shows how you think, experience emotions, interact with others, live your purpose, share your ideas, market yourself, and even make money. So welcome, and let's dive into today's content. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Living by Design. So today what we're going to do is look at the basics on a human design chart, because as I'm doing my interviews and my laser coaching sessions with my guests, many of you may be trying to follow along on your own chart or listening in. And if you're listening to the audio and you're like, what is she talking about? I wanted to give you just an outline, sort of the keys to what I'm looking at in the design. Now, human design is so robust. There is so much information. There is absolutely no way possible that I could cover everything in 1 hour. Okay. There's just no way. I've spent years studying this information. And so what I'm going to do here is just give you the high level. I'm going to point to what those things are, just let you know what they are, so that if you would like to dive deeper and start to study it and understand it more, get books or whatever, that you kind of know what to look for. And I am going to put in the show notes of this episode my favorite resources for studying human design. So no worries, all of that is there. I highly recommend checking out the resources that I'm going to have there for you. So let's, because it's so visual, and again, for those of you who are listening on the audio only, and for those of you who are watching on video, if you would like to get a copy of this PDF, then go ahead over to the show notes page and we can make that available for you so that you can follow along and so you know what I'm talking about here. Okay, so let me share my screen and get going here. All right, here we go. So, basics of human design, welcome, and let's talk a little bit here about energy intelligence. So I want to give you the 50,000 foot view here about what we're really talking about and how I use human design and why I use human design. We're going to cover the main components of it, the applications, and of course, those resources that I mentioned earlier. So number one, the big 50,000 foot view is something that I say over and over and over again. You're going to hear me say it, 100 times if you hear me say it once. And that is, we communicate energetically first and foremost. First and foremost, even if you're a person who's like, I don't know, understand this energy thing. I'm not very intuitive. I'm not very perceptive. I challenge you, my friend. I challenge you, because here's the thing. We are energy. Everything is energy. We know this. Science has proven it. And what we're really looking at, and I just want you to think for a moment, even if you're saying, I don't get that mumbo jumbo. Think about a time where you thought of someone or something popped into your head and then they texted you, emailed you, or they showed up on your social media and you're like, whoa, I haven't thought about that person in 10 years. And there they are. That's energetic communication right there. That's exactly what it is. And so what we're looking at in human design, and I'll just step back for one more second and say in energy intelligence, what we're looking at is how are we communicating with one another in such a way that we can really get to the root of an issue, whether that's how we communicate intrapersonally within ourselves and how that affects or impacts our own energy field, right? You hear about people saying like, have a positive, positive outlook, positive emotions, vibing at a high level, all that stuff. That's really comes a lot from our own way of working internally with our own energy and how we speak to ourselves. I talk a lot about that in my book, Life Well Spoken. And then there's the interpersonally, which is how we show up with others, how our energy communicates with and impacts and is impacted by others. And the reason that I love human design so much is that there's a number of reasons. One of them, though, is that it's a map of our energy. It's a map of our energy. And so we can literally map out how communication flourishes, where there's flow in communication, and where there are miscommunications and what's happening. And we can get right down to the root cause of it without judging, without having to do 10 years of therapy, without having to process the shit out of something, right? So I am a former therapist, and I was seeing clients for years in private practice, and there was an overarching theme. This is the second reason why I love human design out of like 100, is that, people will be coming to me and they're like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me that I can't do it like other people? And I also was asking myself the same thing, like, what's wrong with me that I can't seem to figure this out? I hire everybody to show me how to market. I hire people to show me, what my strengths are. I hire people, I read books, I do all this stuff, right? Like if you're like me, you've probably read all of those self-help books. And of course I studied psychology, I have my master's in psychology. So, I mean, I was just immersed and have been immersed in it for over 25 years. And this question of what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, at some point, I realized when I was working with my clients and myself, just feeling stuck over and over again, that we cannot make someone all right by focusing on what's wrong. Because here's the thing, we'll always find something else that's wrong. Always. Why? Because challenges come up, because we're here to learn and grow and expand, and we're always going to have challenges. That's part of the human condition. But if we know what's right about us, what our strengths are, and how we're interacting with one another at the core, the root, remember, energy is the core and root of everything, is the essence of everything. If we can map it there, we can start to shift it there. And that's really what that underlying energy intelligence is all about. And human design, as I said earlier, is a map of your energy. And it was a huge turning point in my own personal development, but also in the way that I work with my clients. I was no longer diagnosing what was wrong with my clients. Instead, I started to show them, here's what's right about you. Here's what's working. Here's what your strengths are. And here's what's going on. And here's where you're bumping up against challenges. Okay. So our design does not change over our lifetime, but our expression of our design can change over our lifetime. So if we're either experiencing or expressing the challenges of our design or the gifts of our design, and there's simply one, they're two sides of the same coin, if you will. Okay. So let's look at the main components of a human design chart, and then we'll go down into the applications and see how else we can use human design. All right, so it is a synthesis. It's an art and a science. It is the science of differentiation, really showing us that every single one of us is absolutely unique. The number of people there are in the world is the number of unique designs there are. That's what sets human design apart from all other personality systems. And when I say personality systems, I'm, air quotes around that, I'm grouping every single including the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders, the DISC, the colors, the blah, 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 hootie hottie, whatever other assessment tool that's been out there that's been both created for clinical use and for sort of personal and fun use and business use. All of those have a subjective aspect to them where they are looking at a person subjectively, meaning there is an assessment that has to happen where that person is assessing their behavior over time, what they're like most of the time. And there's error in there. Human design, and there's clumping people into sort of buckets, right? Generalizations. Now, there's something really helpful about that. And in human design, we do have some generalizations. We do have like type and that, and you're going to see this in just a few minutes. But there's something that happens, and you're going to see where I'm going to do my very best to point to all of the different aspects here today. But again, it's not just about lumping someone into, oh, I'm a generator type or whatever, or a builder type. There's so much more, because I have clients who actually could look very similar to me, be a generator, a 5-1, a sacral authority, and have a completely different design. This is my design right here. It's completely different. And they have a very different experience and expression in the world because of that. So what's really important is understanding that because we have so many different kinds of people and kinds of designs, it's really hard to just go kind of lump everybody in. And that's what makes it so amazing, is because when you really get how special and unique you are and what your gifts and skills are, then you see how you contribute to the whole. You see where you fit in. And that whole question of what's wrong with me, you really start to see that there's nothing wrong. It's just that you have been living maybe in the challenges of your design or out of alignment with your design energetically. Okay. And there's ways to work with that. So it's the other thing I want to just say about this really quickly is, when I say it's an art and a science, is that there's a whole science to how we calculate a chart and all the different aspects that go into a person's design. There is a science behind this. And the art is the ability to synthesize the design, to use your own, in my case, clinical skills and my intuition to see the whole picture and to bring all those different scientific aspects of the design together and synthesize that for my clients. It is an art and a science. And if somebody is saying, well, I've kind of self-taught, I haven't really, I just intuitively look at the design and I know, because there are people out there that are like that, I highly recommend that you use your discernment when you're listening to people who are claiming that, because there is an entire science behind it. And that science, the more I've been studying this over 7 years, the more I study the science of it, the better my art becomes. Okay. So you really got to get that. You want to look for someone who is trained in the science and also adept at the art as well. All right, so let's start to look at the different components of the design. So it's a synthesis of 6 different sciences or esoteric systems and also scientific systems, if you will. So we have astrology. Now, some of you may go, oh, some of you may right now go, oh God, astrology, I already know my sign. This has nothing to do with your sun sign, okay? I'm a Scorpio. This isn't about being a Scorpio. What we are doing though, is we're taking your birth information, objective data, and this is what we use to create your chart. There's no long assessment. There's no tons of questions about who you are and how you've been most of your life and all of that. Believe me, I used to do those kinds of assessments with people for 25 hours as part of research projects. I am very steeped in how to do intensive assessments. What I love about the system is that it takes objective data and scientifically creates a chart, just like this one, and uses those 3 points of data: your date of birth, your time of birth, and the location of your birth. And if you don't know the time, because some people don't, there are some ways that I have a few tricks up my sleeve to help people pinpoint that date or the time, and I use that with my clients. So that's beyond this conversation, but let's just note that we're really just looking at 3 points of objective data to get your chart. The second thing that we're looking at is the I Ching or I Ching. There are 64 hexagrams or chop marks or chops in the I Ching, and each of them have 6 lines. And each hexagram has a certain vibration or life lesson or characteristic. And each of those 6 lines within the hexagram has a certain vibration and level of awareness. So these 64 hexagrams relate to the 64 gates within the energy centers. You're going to see this in the chart in just a minute. And they also relate to the 64 codons in the human genome. Again, I'm going to show you this in just a minute. We also have the Kabbalah, and this is an ancient Hebrew system that chronicles the journey of the soul through the channels and pathways along the tree of life. So the channels and levels of initiation of the soul are similar to the channels between the centers or functions on the human design chart. And if you turn the chart upside down, if you turn the human design chart upside down, it looks very much like the tree of life in the Kabbalah. The fourth sort of esoteric science, if you will, or system that is part of human design, or that sort of includes, are the chakras or the chakras. This is in the yogic tradition or other energy-based spiritual and medicinal traditions all around the world have described, and more recently we have the scientific tools to actually read these and map them and measure them, these energy centers, throughout both the auric field and also in our own body, the chakras. And these chakras are sort of energy vortexes that relate to the organs and systems in the physical body, through which our life force energy, or prana, chi, whatever you want to call it, flows through us. So the centers or the shapes on the design relate to the chakras in the body. These centers and functions now in the human design system, you're going to see that there's actually 9 functions or centers, where in the traditional sort of yoga or yogic philosophy, there are 7 that are most widely known. There are actually many chakras throughout the body and through the system. There's larger ones and lesser ones. And so anyway, there's 9 in human design, and there's 7 that are more commonly known. Okay, so then let's look at some of the science that is coming in here. So those are the esoteric bases of human design. Now let's look at the 2 scientific aspects. So we have the neutrinos. These are the invisible particles that make up the mass of the universe, both seen and unseen. And so these neutrinos at the time of your birth and about 3 months prior to your birth think of it this way: it's like you're imprinted with a certain pattern, an energetic pattern. And it's through these neutrinos that you are imprinted with this energetic pattern. And this is this energetic pattern imprints your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic bodies. And it creates that energetic blueprint for your soul's journey in this lifetime in a physical body, which is your human design. It's the vehicle in which your soul resides, and that you are, hanging out in this suit, if you will, this vehicle, and that we're moving through life within, that our soul is moving, is residing in. Okay, and then the last one is genetics. Remember I said there's the genetic code. Those 64 chops in the I Ching match the 64 codons in the human genetic code. And these codons, the 64 chops and the 64 codons, relate to the 64 gates or traits in the design. We're going to see those in just a minute. I'll show you where they are. And they really are. So it's both the psychosocial and genetic information that is passed on to you from your parents and ancestors. And this is what makes up the unconscious aspects of your design. The unconscious, this is the other thing that I love about human design, is that it maps not just your conscious, what you're consciously aware of, what your personality is, kind of what you show to the world, but also your unconscious. You're unconscious. So our design contains both the genetic inheritance, as I just said, and our subconscious patterns. That's what we see here on the left-hand side of this chart. We can actually see and map and work with this genetic and unconscious material. Now, I really want you to get this for a second, because there is a lot of work out there done around beliefs and shifting beliefs. And I want you to get that at some level, some of those beliefs are not just inherited, but they're also part of the design. They're actually part of the design. And so if you're a person like I have been in the past who struggled going, why can I not seem to shift this belief? I've done everything. I've done every tapping. I've done every past life regression. I've done all of these things. I can't seem to shift this pattern or this belief. I'm willing to bet anything it's because it's in your design. And you can't change the design, but you can change your experience and expression of the design. And there are so many times where I look at certain fears that I have that I keep bumping up against, certain ways that I see the world that I bump up against. And when I see it in my design, I go, oh, there it is. That's that. There's that thing I keep bumping up against. Got it. And now, instead of judging myself, instead of spending a ton of time trying to fix it, instead of trying to clear it, which is impossible, I can work with it now. I can bring it to my conscious awareness and work with it. So still do all the tapping, still do the other cool energy work. I still have my favorite energy practitioners that I go to. But I also have a different experience and awareness, and I can pinpoint exactly what kind of energy work I need to do in order to shift something. And I also have stopped judging myself because I may be bumping up against something, a pattern, repeatedly, but now I know how to work with it. And it's the judgment of the patterns and the judgment of ourselves that stops us. It's not the actual pattern. It's usually the judgment of ourselves that really, really stops us. The emotional and mental story that we have about it that feeds that energy. Okay. So as a therapist, this is huge, huge, huge. And I have worked with families. I've worked with kids. I've worked with presidents, CEOs of companies. I've worked with entrepreneurs. I've worked with partners, husbands and wives, and wives and wives, and husbands and husbands. I mean, I've worked with all different kinds of people, teams of people. And understanding how we're all a little bit different and how we energetically communicate with one another has been such a huge relief for my clients. They get to see, oh, wow, I've been judging that person or making myself wrong because we do it differently. And we don't need to do that anymore. And here's how we can work together. It's just so cool. I just love that I don't have people on my quote unquote couch for, months anymore. It just it's a game changer. Okay. So here we go. Let's start to look at the main parts of the human design chart. So if you get your chart from Jovian Archive, and again, I'm going to have all of these in the show notes. and the description of today's episode. So you can click there and get your own chart for free. If you get it from Jovian Archive, this is what's going to look like. I actually cut off some of the details, like my birth information. I cut that off of there, but I just want you to see this aspect of the design that I'm looking at, okay? The other thing I want to say briefly before I jump into these main aspects is that, so we have human design, and we have the BG5 Business Institute. Now, very quickly, Jovian Archive and the IHDS, International Human Design School, is the source for human design. This is where the main information has come through. This is the source for human design. There are other schools that have people have offshoot and teaching and all of that, and they've started their own schools and they've started their own certification programs and whatever. But the source for human design is Jovian and IHDS. BG5 Business Institute, where I am on the team there, this is where I've studied over this last year, is the business application of human design. And so there we call it the career design. And basically it's all the same information, but we've changed some of the terminology to make it a little more practical and grounded and business terminology, which I really love. I'm a very practical person. For those of you who understand design, the 5-1, super practical. So I really like the more practical terminology, but you're going to hear me going back and forth between the two terms. And I have, on this PDF, I've put both terms so that you can see that they're interchangeable. So without further ado, let's just go. Let's just look at this. Okay. So on this chart, up in the upper left corner of the chart here, we have our type. I am a generator type. There are 4 main human design or career design types. There's the generator types or builder types. That's one group, but there are two subsets of that. We have the generator or classic builder, which are 37% of the population, approximately. And we have the manifesting generator or the express builder, which is about 33% of the population. So together, the generator/builder type is about 70% of the population. I'm a generator, or builder, are the majority. Our energy is really here influencing the majority of the population, okay? The second type we have is the projector or advisor in the business terminology, and they're about 21% of the population. So 1 in 5 people is going to be a projector or advisor. Then we have the manifestors or the innovators in the business terminology. I also like to think of them as the quote unquote initiators. They're about 8% of the population. And then finally, we have the reflector or evaluator, which is about 1% of the population. They're very special, rare gems are evaluators. Now, I just want to say something here because I hear people say all the time, well, I don't want to be a builder. I want to be a manifester. We have all this charge around the word manifestation and manifesting. And a lot of people, when they first learn about their type, they're like, oh, I don't want to be that. I want to be that other type. And it's like, when you really get that, actually, as builder types, we're really designed for the long haul of manifestation. And these words are just sort of describing the way energy moves in the world. It's sort of, think of it this way, as sort of, it describes our aura. It describes our energy composite and how we interact with one another and interact with the world. That's what our type is. And so don't get attached to the name of it, really, when you start to learn about your design and learn about the type, and when you start to really understand it from the point of view of the energy of the type, then you really get the beauty of this and how all the types are really designed to work together. Okay. So in an ideal world, the manifester starts things, the builders or generators provide the energy for this movement. The projector or advisor says, hey, you guys need to move over here and do this and guide the rest of us. And the reflector or evaluator is there saying, hey, are we doing the right thing? Are we in the right place? Is this even, they see the big picture and are really evaluating the whole process. Now, that's just it in a very brief nutshell of how that's in an ideal world. Someday, I think we're going to move towards that. The more people understand human design and understand their own design, I believe we're going to move towards that ideal. But for now, we're all kind of bumbling around a little bit and doing the best we can. I do believe, I'm going to say something here, mark my words, I do believe that human design will become the gold standard of all the personality systems in business and in clinical practice and therapy, in the business world, and in personal life in the next 5 to 10 years. I believe that it will be. I am seeing it already. It's taking off like wildfire. So again, this is really about finding the resources that have the most accurate information so that you can learn it and start to understand your own design and how you're interacting with other types. All right, so then let's look at the second part of the design. We have the definition. So the definition is what we call assimilation in the business terminology, and there are 6 different styles of assimilation. This is basically, how do you take in and process information? I am for example, I'm a single definition. I work very independently. I can take in information and grok information super quickly. And then there are 5 other different styles besides that independent or single definition / assimilation. Okay. So the way we take in information, the way we work is a little bit different for each of us. So really get that. There's 6 different styles of that. Then we have the strategy. And what I've done here is just shown you that all types have some aspect of weighting in their core strategy. So for us builders or generators, it's wait to respond. For the advisors or projectors, it's wait to be invited. For the innovators or manifestors, it's wait to be moved into, quote, correct action, and then inform others before you act. And then for the evaluators or reflectors, it's wait to be initiated, reflect, and discuss. Now, this is a huge topic, one that could be an entire show on its own. So I am, rather than diving any deeper than that, I'm going to point you to an article. It's called Waiting is Your Superpower or something like that. I wrote it. It's a blog on my website. But again, I'm going to have the link in the show notes. I highly recommend reading that because I really unpack waiting. The thing is that most of us hate waiting. I am a queen of, impatience here. I don't like to wait any more than the rest of you do. So, but when you really start to understand that there is a beauty in waiting and learning how to wait and using your energy correctly, this is all about that energy intelligence. When you use it correctly, oh, it feels so good. And you get more done. It's not about time management. It's about energy management. I say this over and over and over again. Forget time management. Focus on energy management. And your strategy is one way that you do that. So then on the next column over here, we have the profile. And in the business terminology, we call that the public role. So we have 12 different public roles or profiles. The profile or public role, think of it this way, it's how others perceive you. It is how you fulfill your purpose. your quote unquote role in life, and kind of how you interact with others, how, as I said before, how others see you. And this has a lot to do with your marketing. So, you know how I was just talking about the strategy of waiting to be invited as a projector, waiting to respond, all of these, and we talked about this actually in episode 1. Angela talked about this whole thing about waiting to be invited, and the lighthouse marketing that I talk about with all my advisor clients is this. How do you market? So remember, I really want you to get, like, there's all these different aspects to your design that will impact the way you market. And marketing is just communication, right? So whether you're marketing yourself to the team that's the different teams that are working concurrently on a project, or you're an individual who's marketing your your own business and your services, products, whatever. If you're a TEDx speaker, which I coach TEDx speakers, if sharing your idea is basically marketing, right? You're selling your idea and getting it out there. So how you do that has a lot to do with your profile. And so again, there's 12 different ones, and you can probably start to see how we're getting more and more. If there's all these different types and all these different aspects of the design, you can start to see how each one is there's so many factors that go into the design that will show us how different each one can get. Okay. So that's the public role or profile. And then we have our authority. And our authority or decision-making strategy in the business terminology is how you make decisions for yourself. It is how you navigate life. This is the most important part of your design. If you never learn anything else about your design, as long as you know what your decision-making strategy is, you can do fine. Your design does you. It's been doing you since the moment you were born. So, you're either in flow and in alignment with it, or you're out of alignment. And the biggest way that you can get out of alignment is by not following your own authority or decision-making strategy. So you see here on the screen, mine is sacral. I'm a gut person. And remember that the reason I am a sacral or gut person is that I'm a generator type, and I have that sacral defined, colored in. We're going to talk about this in a minute. So 70% of the population have their sacral center colored in or defined. That's what makes us builder types, manifesting generators, builder, express builder. That's 70%, right? The other 30% do not have this sacral center colored in. It's white, just like this one over here. And so that other 30% of the population, there are, let's see, we're going to look at this here. There's 9 other, there's 6 different decision-making strategies, and each type has several. So let me look at it this way. I'm not doing math well right now. So with builders or generators, we have 2 different authorities, sacral and emotional. Okay. So advisors or projectors have 5 different kinds of authorities, 5 different ways that they make decisions, and it's not with their gut. Innovators or manifestors have 3 different authorities. Again, not gut. None of them are from the gut. And the evaluators or reflectors have one authority that they follow for themselves, and it's not the gut. Okay. So again, I'm not going to dive into this. This is a huge discussion. I could again spend an entire class or entire hour on just this, and I will point you to directions on how to learn more about this. Okay. Let me just go to the not self theme. In business terminology, we call this the guidepost, and this is really what keeps you on track. It's sort of your quote unquote alignment tracker. That's what I call it. And for the generator types, frustration means we're off track. Now I want you to get this for a second. we're 70% of the population, generator, builder types. How many people do you feel like are just moving through life frustrated? A lot, right? When we are off track, we are feeling frustrated. We're misusing our energy. We're misappropriating our energy. And that causes the frustration. This is just an indicator that we are acting out of alignment with who we really are. We are acting out of conditioning and energy influence from other people. That's what that not self means. And so what lets us know that we're on track is satisfaction as generator types or builder types. Now, I'm just going to pause here for a second and let you know that on my website, and again, I'll have another link in the show notes, is what I call the success mantras. And in that PDF that you can download off my website, the success mantras, it shows you the different authority types so you can get your chart, has a link to get your chart, and it covers your type, it covers your decision-making strategy and the guideposts there and your authority, right? It lists all the different authorities in there. And then each one has a mantra that sort of, like a one-liner that allows you to really embody like the correct use of your energy. Okay. So you want to download that because that will explain more than what I can cover right here. Okay. Then finally, on the human design chart, we have our incarnation cross, or this is our life theme. There are 192 different themes possible. 192 different themes possible. Mine here is the left angle cross of wishes. This is, if you think about it, it's part of your purpose. It is a theme or themes that have been running throughout your life, both personally, professionally. It's part of how you be in the world. It's, yeah, I mean, it literally just gives you an idea, context for who you are in the world, why you are in the world, and what you're here to do. It's quite a thing when you see that and you read your theme and it's like, oh my God, I can see that throughout my life. This is amazing. Again, resources in the show notes for that. Let's look at the aspects of the design chart itself. So we have the functions. Remember those 9 functions, or I said the chakras. I was talking about the chakras earlier. So we have 7 chakras in the human body, the 7 main ones. And in human design, we have 9 different centers or functions. So we call them the functions in the business terminology and centers in the usual human design terminology. So here we have, starting at the bottom, drive and stamina, or the root. This is the square at the very bottom of the chart. And just a note here, the colors that you see right here, if you have these centers or functions colored in on your chart, they're going to be these colors. No one really knows why they are these colors. It was never explained exactly why these colors are the colors that are used. But if you have them colored in, they're going to be these colors. And if you do not have them colored in, they're going to be white. Again, I'm going to show you this example in just a moment. But here we have at the very bottom, the root or drive and stamina. And then to the left of that, moving upwards, we have the survival instinct or spleen. This is also an awareness center, your instinct. And then right to the right of that, we have the red square, which is the energy resource function or sacral center. If you have that red, you're going to be a generator or / builder type. Okay. And then on the right hand side of that sacral center, we have the emotional intelligence function. This is the solar plexus. This is your emotional awareness center as well. Right above and to the left of that, we have a little red triangle there. That's the willpower. And this is the center of the ego or heart. Okay. And then in the yellow diamond in the center of the chest, there is the identity and direction, or G center in human design terminology. Right above that is communication and action, or the throat center. Right above that is the green triangle, sort of upside down, is conceptualization, or the ajna center. And this is the mental awareness center. And then at the very top, we have the crown, or inspiration function. And this is all the different functions that we have. And again, they relate to the chakras, and they also relate to the physical body, or the physical systems of the body. Again, I'm not going to go into all of that. I'm going to point you to where you can learn this. I just want you to know the names of them so that when you're following along with myself and my guests, that you can track what we're talking about. All right, here we go. This is my design chart again. If it's defined, it's colored in. Undefined is white. Okay, so here are those same functions or centers we just looked at. And let's start down here near the bottom. So we have a defined function. I have 3 defined functions or centers in my chart. I have that survival instinct, energy resource, and drive and stamina. Those are all colored in my chart. They're defined. Think of this like a circuit board. Everything that's colored in is turned on 24/7. It doesn't turn off. It's on all the time. If it's colored in, doesn't matter what color it is, it's just turned on 24/7. Everything that is white or undefined in the chart turns on and off depending on who we're with. And there's some transit aspects that happen as well. That's a bigger conversation. Just for brevity's sake, and just to keep it very simple, just imagine that each one of us, our designs are communicating with one another all the time. We literally complete one another's designs. We affect each other energetically, and we can map that, okay? So all the white functions in my design, there's 6 of them, are where I take in the energy of other people and I amplify that energy, okay? They're not consistently colored in my design. All right, so now we have, remember we talked about those lines that go between the centers or functions. We call them channels in human design, or strengths in the BG5 terminology. And here you see I have 2 strengths in my design. I have a format strength right here, the 5342, and I also have the 3457 is my other strength, okay? That's a solid line that connects 2 functions together, is a strength or channel. Then we have conscious and unconscious traits. So remember when we looked at it before, there was all those red, in one column it was all red, and that was the unconscious, and in the other column it's black, and those are the conscious. That's what we're looking at here. So I have conscious traits right here. So it's just half of that channel's colored in. It's just the trait. And on this chart, you can see where it's purple and colored in. These little numbers are those 64 gates for traits, 64 codons, 64 chop marks. Remember that we were talking about earlier? So each of them, the ones that are highlighted in purple are the ones that I have defined, the ones that I have colored in and that are turned on consistently. And each one of those 64 traits has an energetic quality to it, and it has an energetic signature to it. So we have defined or conscious traits and unconscious traits right here, the red ones in my design. And then we have an undefined function or center, and I'm pointing right here to this identity and direction. And the reason we call this one undefined is because I have a trait in it that's colored in, the 46 here, but the center or function itself is white. So we call that undefined. Whereas up here at the very top in the crown, I don't have any traits defined here in this undefined function. So we call it completely open. All right. So energy is going to flow through there a little bit differently than it's going to flow through, say, my throat or communication and action, because I have 4 traits there. And there is a whole slew of information about this in a couple of the classes that I'm going to recommend for you here at the end of this episode. So stay tuned for that. So one of the things, again, there's just so much cool information here. Hopefully this is just helping you to, when I'm talking to my clients or talking to my guests, to just orient you to what I'm talking about here. That's really the key intention behind this episode. I will do further episodes similar to this where I may unpack a whole aspect of, say, energy intelligence and emotional intelligence. Oh man, wait till I get started on emotional intelligence and how it's being taught. Oh boy, that's gonna blow your socks off. Every time I do an emotional intelligence presentation, people go, oh my God, my whole life makes sense. It's just amazing. So stay tuned for those. I'll do those interchangeably when I have guests on the episode. But here's what I really want you to get. If you have an experience with someone or you're reading about your design and you're like, oh, this sucks, I don't want to be this, or somebody tells you something about your design and you feel limited by that, you feel stuck because of that, you feel like you don't have any freedom in that, then I highly encourage you and I invite you to find another resource. I have many clients that come to me who, and Angela actually in episode 1 talked about this, where she had someone say to her, oh, well, you're a projector, you have to wait to be invited. It's going to be really hard for you to market. And on the one hand, she found that liberating because it explained a lot. But on the other hand, she was like, well, great, now what am I supposed to do? So if you're getting information like that, I really want you to get that there's nothing wrong with you and that we are limitless through our design, not in spite of it. And I can't tell you how many of my clients have come and they're like, I don't like my design. And my whole goal is that you walk away really getting how freaking awesome you are and how beautiful your design is and how amazing and what an incredible contribution it is, not only to yourself, but to the world. And to really understand that you are not limited by your design whatsoever. You are actually liberated by your design. And if you're not feeling that way, then you and I should talk. There you go. Drop the mic on that one. Okay, here we go. I want to show you a little bit about some cool applications that we can do when we're looking at design. So this is, when I'm looking up here at the individual design, right? So I have a lot of clients where they just come and we look at their individual design, we look at their marketing, we look at their speaking. I have a lot of clients who are speakers, whether they're speaking to a team, whether they're speaking on behalf of a company, whether they are the leader of that company, TEDx speakers, speakers who are trying to do speak to sell and it's not working. And they're like, I don't understand why this formula isn't working. We look at their energy. So again, remember, for me, it's all about communication and getting the right kind of attention for you and your business, or getting the right kind of attention for you in your relationships personally. So one of the ways that we can look at that is that we can look at it through partnership. And so here we have 2 individual designs. This is mine, and this is my guest from last week, Angela, in episode 1. She and I collaborate a lot together, and we partner in many ways. And so this is a partnership design, and I have software that will blend the 2 charts together, which creates a third chart. It creates a third sort of entity that we work with, and we can see, where are we going to be compatible? Where are we going to push each other's buttons? Where are we energetically going to really support one another? And where may we have challenges? Super cool. So I've done this with, as I said before, couples. I've done it with business partners. Oh my God, that's amazing, because here you go. You're going to invest a lot of time, money, and energy with a person to create a business, and you want to make sure that you're both are doing what you're designed to do, your strengths, your genius, and let the other person do theirs, and also see where are you going to have struggles with that. It just so happens that Angela and I have a really compatible design for working together in partnership, and that's really cool. And I've also used this with families, with kids, and looking at the dynamics between a parent and child, and really helping the parents to understand their kids in a different way, and how they're getting their buttons pushed, and how you're going to parent each kid a little bit differently. So that's one of the applications, to look at the partnership or look at two charts together. When we start to look at 3 to 5 charts together, then we're talking about a team. And then we're looking at a different aspect of the software that pulls in each individual aspects of each individual's chart and puts them together in a team design. And so BG5 Business Institute is base group 5, which is really talking about this small team. So again, when we're looking at it in a corporation, whether that's a small business or a larger business, it's really made up of teams, and we can map the energy between those teams. And we're also looking for, are there any gaps in the team? Because that is where the energy is going to leak out, and that's where people are going to struggle. So in this team, an example, culture is missing and public relations are missing. So they've got everything else covered that's needed in a business team, but it's not necessarily consistent and holding together in culture. And they have nobody who's got the strengths to pull it out and share the business out in the world. So these are going to be 2 places where they seem to struggle. It's sort of like, how do we bring in new clients, and how do we have a cohesive culture here? So we can map that. In fact, it's really cool. Google did a study a couple of years ago. I don't have it listed here, but they spent a lot of money trying to figure out the ideal team, because they have these great teams that work at Google, and they tried to they brought in different researchers to figure out if they could map out exactly why these teams seem to be so ideal. And they came up with 5, I think it was about 5 different aspects that that really helped a team to be cohesive. One of them being like psychological safety, and really it lists all of it. If I can find the study, I'll put it in the show notes. But here's the thing. Ultimately, at the end, they said, we actually can't figure out exactly how these teams work really well together, but we do know that these are the components that help to make a team. Here's where human design comes in. We can actually map that. What Google doesn't know, and what we at BG5 Business Institute do know, is that we can literally map that team and create the highest functioning teams based on people's design. It's really cool, super cool. So, and we can do that in a larger corporation and also smaller businesses. So Align Your Design is my company, and I just want to show you this again as an aspect of kind of how I use it. So I look at an individual's design, whether that's as a part of a team or as a leader or as an entrepreneur, however, look at the individual designs and look at the business design. So does the business model support that person's individual design? Remember, like a projector is going to have a little bit different way of marketing. So, structuring their business based on some other person's business model is not going to work necessarily for that person. But we can create the ideal business model that energetically supports that individual's design. And then over here in team design, so even if you're an individual, like I'm on my own, but I have a team. I have people, VAs. I also collaborate with other people. And that's where I bring in the team design. And I'm looking at, hey, are we compatible? Are we bringing in different aspects to the business that will help us to know how the dynamics are going to work there? Okay. So all of it is around helping people to understand their purpose And when you understand your purpose and your design, whether that's individually on a team or in a larger capacity, like whether that's a business or even a family, it can increase productivity and profitability. And so it's really, really cool to map all that out. Just really quickly, so you know something, sometimes people go, what do you do? I do design synthesis sessions. So I synthesize design for people. If you're just starting out and you're kind of like, how do I start? This is a really beautiful session to just synthesize all this information for you. And then you can go on and study it more. I also do coaching for leaders and teams. And so I do assessments, and I co-create and co-lead with other organizational coaches. So I may do the diagnostics and do the assessments and show other coaches, hey, here's how you're going to get them. Here's how to focus your work with this organization or this corporation to get the most out of their work with you. And so I do collaborate that way. And I also work directly with the leaders and the organizations and the teams. And then finally, one of my favorite things is the profit potential coaching. Yes, we are designed to make money, even as an employee. And I like to do this work because it's so cool to show people how they're designed to make money. And it's the coolest stuff. At the time of this recording, there's only 27 people in the world who are certified to do this profit potential coaching, and I'm one of them. I feel really blessed to be a part of that 27 people, and we're working on training more. So to that end, let me tell you a little bit about some of the resources where you can learn about design and study it yourself. So if you want to learn the basics, I highly recommend going through the BG5 Business Institute. And I have a special code that's in the show notes for that foundation course. It's an affiliate link, but also it's for tracking purposes. I want to know how many people who are listening to this decide to go on and study through the foundation course, which is all the basics. It's like everything I covered here plus, and you learn how to the basic science of the chart. It's so incredible. It's jam-packed. Just going through that course is going to transform your life. Whether you ever decide to use it professionally at all, it is life-changing to take that course. And the information, the way it's laid out, is incredible. Unlike anything, the detail is amazing, the way they laid it out. So I have a special link for that. And if you take the foundation course in September, one of the bonuses that you get if you do both semester 1 and 2 is one of the profit potential workshops, Drive and Stamina. And that I'm going to be teaching in September. So I'm not teaching foundation, but I am teaching the profit potential workshop. And if you decide to do foundation, then the workshop that I'm teaching is a bonus for that. You can also decide you don't want the foundational course and you just want to do the profit potential workshop with me. That's great. Either way, I'm going to have the links in the show notes and would love to have you in class with me. And for those of you who do come and use my special link, I'm going to have a special bonus for you. For all of the people that use that link, I will have something that I will put together just for you, for my listeners to the Living by Design podcast, just as a thank you. And I just love this information so much. It has changed my whole life. It's changed my business. It's changed my marriage and my family. It is incredible. And I love sharing it with people, and I love turning people onto it and really learning it, the foundations and the basics, and being able to share this with their friends, family, and even their clients as well. Okay. So be sure to join me in the next episode. We're going to have a guest next time, and we'll be looking at their design. And hopefully today's episode gave you a little bit more of the foundational pieces that you can start to follow along a little bit easier and be able to look at your design as I'm talking to my guests and see, hey, do you have some of what I'm talking about in there? And does it relate to you? This is how you really are going to get the most out of listening to the Living by Design podcast. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Living Design Podcast. Head over to chrisprochaska.com and check out those resources I have for you to expand your energy intelligence and boost your creative potential, all in alignment with your design. Remember, choose goals that are worthy of you and your natural energetic design. It's a hell of a lot more fun to live that way than trying to be someone you're not. You've got a genius that can only come through you. Wouldn't now be a good time to share it? Until next time, take care.